It had been 3 years since I arrived. I came on a plane 2 islands away, and took a boat across the Green Lake, stopping with my bags at the checkpoint of the Golden Flower caravans. I waited for weeks, sleeping under the stars and studying the water, petting fish the size of my arm, and letting them nibble my hands and feet. They give beautiful manicures. This part of Ireland had only the occasional human, separated into two groups. Those who lived in the horseless caravans and those who fished in the lake. I did the latter as I waited for the caravans to arrive, and bought the smallest one with the rest of my pocket money. But unlike the other caravans, I stayed by the water, and watched them cross the plain rock to the forest, where they disappeared into the line of fat trees. I made a bed of moss in my caravan, and closed myself in for the frozen nights of the 3rd month. The lake was clear blue when I emerged, and I began to take my samples. Like an alchemist, I tested the water over my little fire for ages, seeing how each bubble from every section dissolved into green again. Around the 3rd month the water became clearer still, and the bubbles never turned green, no matter how long I had it over the flame. I talked to the fish and memorized the bubbles they made, so that when I heard the waterfolk I would know it. But years passed, and still I heard only the bubbles of the fish, and every few moons the color of the water would change. So I went away up the river, pulling my light caravan after me into the line of fat trees that I had thought was beneath me. It was dark in the forest, and every stream of light fell on the river. When it got dark I tied my caravan to a tree. The night was warmer than beside the lake, and I didn't even need to light a fire. I awoke to loud splashing and laughter that sounded like gargled water. I couldn't untie the door flap fast enough, and stumbled into the scene of a lifetime. People with human-like torsos and fish tails hopped around in the rapids, and sunned themselves on the flat rocks. The second one of them saw me a current spread between them, and they scattered back into the river like birds. All except one. A short and long-haired waterfolk stayed in a pool, staring at me with startling gray eyes. "I heard you were from the lake," I said, forgetting my rehearsed greeting. "Well, we're here, aren't we?" the waterfolk said. "They aren't scared of you, but the silver you wear in your ears and around your neck. It kills us when the Golden Flower caravans hunt." "What about the people who fish by the lake?" I asked. "They don't hunt us, because they know that once they were us." "Can I ask you some questions?" I asked. "I've been searching for your people for my entire life. I need answers for my report to the Board of Mythology." "No," the waterfolk said. "If the board knew that you existed, then they would protect you from the caravans," I said. "Otherwise nobody will believe you're real, and they won't help you." The waterfolk climbed out of the pool, and waddled over to me like a seal. "Go ahead. Firstly, what is your name? If I told you, you wouldn't believe me." "What if I told mine first?" I asked. "Kiwi. It's a strange name even for humans. My mother named me after the fruit she ate most before I was born." The waterfolk gargled a laugh again. "That's horrible. Mine is Ilampopila." "So you're a girl? Your name ends with a dot." "You're a girl and yours doesn't," the waterfolk said, slapping the rocks with her tail. "But if a girl means someone with long hair and the ability for children, then I believe that yes, I am. But I prefer to be called Lodot." "And how long have you lived?" "About 9 times the moon cycles," Lo said. "We grow up fast and are old for a long time." I realized then that I didn't have a paper, nor any sort of writing implement. "Will you wait a minute?" "No," she said. "If we are truly important, you'll remember it. This way you won't have to memorize idle facts again later, and you can present to your board with truth." "Fine," I said, and I asked her a few more questions, all to which she gave long and detailed responses. It was night again by the time she finished her last story, which had started just slightly after noon. "Will you come back tomorrow?" I asked, drinking water straight from the stream. I didn't need to filter it when the clear water ran through the fat trees. "I never come back anywhere," Lo said. "We don't repeat things." "So I might not see you again?" I asked. "Possibly. The waters and forests are dangerous here. Any goodbye may be the last for us." She nodded to me and waddled back into the water. I went inside my caravan and dug through my things for the filled-up research papers. On the back of a graph I sketched a charcoal painting of Lo, and jotted down any of the details I caught in her many stories and descriptions. I had already started to miss her as I folded my things and packed them into my suitcases. I tucked my filter bag away as well and filled 2 canisters with river water. The morning felt the same as the day before. I heard the shrill voices and gargled laughter again, and the sunlight was just the same strength as it was 24 hours ago. I hurried out of the caravan, making sure to leave my silver behind the flap. This time the Waterfolk didn't flee, and I saw Lo in her pool again. "I thought you said you never go to the same place twice," I said. "I'm not in the same place," she said, pointing a few centimeters away. "I was over there yesterday." "I'm glad you're back," I said, "but I have to go today. I already packed my things and I have to give myself enough time to return the caravan before catching the plane." Lo nodded, waddling out of the water. "You may take a picture of us if you'd like," she said. "You aren't too bad, and not a single photo exists of us. We'd all like to know what we look like. And then you may show it to your board." "I'll have to find it," I said, rooting around in my things for the technology that had seemed so out of place in the tranquilness of Ireland. I uprooted all my things, but finally pulled out the small device. The Waterfolk took a few minutes of coaching to sit still, so that the photo would catch their faces. They giggled all the while, as if the small camera could catch their secrets too. Another day passed as I showed them their photos, pointing out to each of the 36 Waterfolk whose nearly identical face was theirs as they told me stories and the history of their people. The next morning they showed up again, and I sat with them and watched my plane glide above us back to the city. "I'll have to wait another month," I told Lo, and for the next month devoted myself to them, only making the occasional note and taking a picture of a unique event like a birthday dance for a Waterfolk marking his 10th moon cycle. But the day came when the Waterfolk were truly going to leave for the lakes downstream, and I pulled my caravan along with them to the checkpoint, where I waved goodbye with the promise of returning next year if my presentation went well. I left my caravan closer to the fat trees, where the other people wouldn't find the Waterfolk as they swam further away. I organized my drawings and photographs on the plane, preparing for the presentation I had booked on the boat, and I got there 2 days later. The board took me as soon as I asked. I came prepared with my notes, with no intention of showing them. Instead I told the stories of the folk, and showed the drawings I made, mimicking their waddle, and showing on my own head the style of hair they had. Only after the snickering few people on the board had left, I pulled out my photos and notes, and passed them around to the remaining 3. Ultimately the others returned and were left with red ears after the protection had passed.